Good rising and great awakenings. Today is January 27th, year 2016. And today is my youngest daughter, Lluvia Rosa Vela's birthday. So I decided to record this video to tell her birth story because, whenever I meet somebody, it always comes up, and Lluvia is usually embarrassed when I tell this story. So now it'll be on YouTube. Haha. So anyway, Lluvia Rosa Vela was born January 7th, 1990. And her dad and I, Mario Vela, we only believed in natural childbirth and organic foods and homeschooling, and we had a reggae band. And so we were, our first daughter, Manoa Vela, was born at home. And so, of course, we were going to have our second daughter, Lluvia Vela, born at home as well. Both births were unassisted other than her dad. And since the first birth took almost 24 hours, on January 27th, when my water bag broke, her dad figured that he had plenty of time to go run errands and everything. So he took Manoa and they left. This was... I don't know, this was sometime in the afternoon, like 2 o'clock maybe, or 3 o'clock, or I don't know. But I do remember that we were in Austin, Texas, January 27th, and it should have been a cold, rainy day. It should have been our rainy season, but it was a drought for some reason, and it hadn't rained in 3 weeks. And even though the births were unassisted, I still had a midwife give me a checkup when I first found out I was pregnant. And if I had any questions, I could refer to her. So according to her calculations, January 27th, Lluvia was 3 weeks late. And so I remember on that day I decided I'm just going to get up and clean my house, because when you clean the house, that usually changes the energy, and that means that you're ready for the baby to arrive. So I got up and cleaned the house. And then, of course, later that day, my water bag broke, and that's when her dad and sister decided to go run some errands. So as soon as they left, the contractions began, and we didn't have cell phones back then, and I didn't have anybody really to call. So I just did my thing. I did my meditation. I did some yoga. I think I took a bath, and I took an enema, and I was just following the guidance of my spirit or my angels. They were telling me what to do. Do this, take a bath, drink juice, make tea, so I was like, okay. And so by the time Mario got back, the contractions were really close. This birth was fast. It wasn't anything like when Manoa was born, when everything was slow. And I'll record that story at another time. Anyway, so as soon as he got back, things had been really speeding up, and the contractions were just moments apart. So we put Manoa in the bathtub, and her dad and I, we made preparations. We had bought a new futon, so I remember we rolled it up because we didn't want it to get soiled with the birthing. And I was having contractions, so I was walking and making sounds and breathing hard, all those things you do. But things were moving really fast. And I remember after 2 hours, Manoa said, "Can I get out of the bathtub?" We had kind of lost track of time. And so she'd been in the bathtub for about 2 hours. So he said, "Oh, all right, yeah, come on out." So she came out and sat in the lion chair. I had this wonderful antique lion chair with lion claws for the paws, and at the feet, lion paws on the armrest of the chairs. So Manoa sat in the chair that I had used for a birthing chair when she was being born. So this time Manoa was seated in the chair, and I kneeled down. I kneeled down on the ground because I wasn't gonna lay on my back, like I had done before. And I remember their dad was like, "Okay, I'm going to get a crochet hook to pop the water bag." And so Manoa was saying, "Dad," so he went to go into the closet to find my crochet hook because that's what we had used to pop the water bag before. But I guess we had forgotten that my water bag had already broke. But anyway, he went to the closet and he was looking for a crochet hook. And, you know, this was about 3 years later than when Manoa was born. So by this time I had 3 knitting bags filled with yarn and crochet hooks. And Manoa was saying, "Dad, I can see the baby's head." And he was like, "Okay, I'm getting the crochet hook, I'm getting the crochet hook." And all I remember is like yarn balls coming out of the closet at me, just because he was looking through my my knitting bags for a crochet hook. And then Manoa said, "I can see the baby's head, Dad. I can see the hair. And I can see the eyes. I can see the nose." Because I was squatting. I was like kneeling. And he turned around. They said, "Oh shit." And I remember I just stood up and I went, "Oh," like that. And Lluvia just dropped out. I didn't really have time for labor pains. She just dropped out. And like I said, Mario turned around and said, "Oh shit." And so he turned around and he dove across the floor, like halfway across the room to where I was kneeling or squatting. Because remember, we had rolled up the futon and we just had a tarp on the ground. And she was going to hit the floor. And so he dove across the room and he caught Lluvia as she just fell out. and there she was. And, you know, I didn't see this part, but she was born in the sack. And so he had to, you know, cut it open or rip it open and pull the baby out. And, you know, we had, it was our tradition to not name the child until the child was 8 days old because you don't really know the child. And so we hadn't discussed the name. I had had a vision or a dream and about the baby. So I said, well, if it's a girl, her middle name is Rosa. And that was his mom's name, Rosa. And so I knew her middle name was Rosa, but we didn't know the first name. And we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl either. Although I'd had 2 visions of her before she was born, and I knew what she was going to look like, and I knew she was definitely a girl. But anyway, so like I said, it had been a drought in January, and I was like wearing a t-shirt dress. I've been trying to find that photograph. It's somewhere. I'll find it. And, you know, it was a warm day in January when it should have been cold and rainy. But it was really warm. I just had on like a t-shirt dress. And so, you know, he cut open the sack and pulled the baby out and got her cleaned up and handed her to me. And, you know, she just started screaming and crying. And it was so scary. We didn't know what was wrong. And we counted all her fingers and toes and, you know, everything seemed to be working. And we were like, "Oh no, what's the matter? What's the matter?" And then one of us looked out the window, the bedroom window, and this huge storm had blown in. The skies were dark, and it was all clouds, and it was pouring rain, and it was thundering and lightning. And we hadn't noticed the storm arrive with her birth because, you know, when I went into labor, it was still a warm, unusual day. And so he just looked at me and said, "Her name is Lluvia. Lluvia Rosa." And we're like, "Yeah, okay." And so, but we waited to make sure that was her name. And then on the 8th sunrise, because she was born at 9 o'clock Central Time on January 27th. And so 8 days later, 8 sunrises later, we went to Mount Bonnell in Austin, Texas, which was the highest place you can go in Austin. And we also had Manoa's ceremony there, and also her bat mitzvah we had there. But anyway, we went, you know, before sunrise. I don't know what time it was. It was before sunrise. And we climbed up all the stairs of Mount Bonnell, you know, and it was just a regular chilly morning, chilly rising. But it wasn't raining. It was just, you know, cloudy. And so we got up to the top of Mount Bonnell, and we laid out our items for the ceremony. You know, we lit the candles, we had the incense, we had the water, and we had a live food offering, fresh fruit or vegetable. And right when, we thought the sun would be rising, it started drizzling. and their dad was like, "Oh, don't worry, it's gonna pass, and let's wait for the sunrise." And then it started raining, and there was no sun. And then it started pouring, and that's when Manoa said, "Dad, don't you get her? Her name is Lluvia. It's raining. Let's just have the ceremony." And Manoa was only 2.5 years old. She was very wise for her age. And we realized, that's right, her name is Lluvia, and we're not going to see the sunrise. It's going to rain. So we stood there and had the naming ceremony in the rain, and then we went home. And, for a few weeks or months after that, we would go somewhere like for an outdoor outing, and it would rain. Or we'd go for a picnic or, festival, and it would rain. And it was just really interesting, this relationship she has with the weather, and how she asked for a mild winter in Chicago because we have boiler trouble last year. And sure enough, there's a very mild winter. I don't know about today, but up until recently, it was still relatively mild. So anyway, that is the birth story of Lluvia Rosa Vela, also known as Villa Rosa. And this is her mom, Tchiya Amet, wishing her a very happy, prosperous, and wonderful birthday. Peace and love, all my love. And yes, all my love. Tap.